the church needs to be reimagined. Like, we need to rethink what the church is and what the church looks like. And I know most people are going to say, like, well, this church is set on Jesus, or the church is set on Jesus. I think we say a lot. We say Jesus' name a lot, but I'm not sure that he's the center of our worship, right? We're either worshiping doctrine or we're worshiping gifts. We've made Jesus essentially an idol. All right, welcome to another edition of the Church Dropout podcast. My name is Alan. I am the host, and I am with Lisa.
The invisible host.
Yeah, the invisible host. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. Today, what we wanted to do really quickly is go over the letter or the open statement that Boz Tchividjian wrote, who really he's a lawyer, but he's also a victim advocate in terms of kind of an individual who, really pushes for proper, alignment of church culture, to protect churches from different things like this, protect people from trauma-related incidents, such as this. But he's widely known in this particular area to do that. And he wrote a letter. I believe that he is representing one of the victim. I guess a few of the victims.
Yeah,
several.
Jane Doe, and then several other victims.
Yeah, so he wrote a letter, and I'm thinking that this is in part in response to, I think it's Eric Volz or the gentleman that made the statement on behalf of IHOP, just kind of walking through the investigation and pointing out some things as far as like what is that? Like the victims are not complying or they're not, participating, in the investigation and different things of that sort. And this is in some sense to set it straight, but also I think to call IHOP KC to handle the situation right. Now, again, our thing is not necessarily to look at the case, but what can we glean from this? What can we learn from this? Obviously, there's a lot of people who are affected by this, and abuse in any form is something that people struggle with in the church and outside the church, but especially in the church, where it's an institution where we're supposed to be about healing, not hurting. And this is becoming an epidemic in terms of this is something that's becoming more widespread within the church, where people are being affected by this. And so how do we get healthy? What does the church need to do as a result of this? And so we want to read through this, kind of walk through it as we have done in the past. And then I want to offer, I think, some things at the end that, kind of speak to what I think should happen, in terms of what I think the church needs to do, and maybe even more of an address to the greater church on how we need to change within this specific process. So we're just going to read through it, give you an opportunity to digest it. As always, I'll put the link inside of the show notes, and we may interject, may talk a little bit, and then we'll go from there. But before you start reading, voice, what do you think about? Just your initial thoughts about the letter that Boz Tchividjian wrote, or the lawyer wrote.
Well, he has some very good points in here, and it almost points to Mr. I think was that Eric Volz.
Yeah,
it almost showed exactly what we felt was going on.
Absolutely.
With the last video that we did with Eric Volz, I believe that's his name.
Yeah.
And he
blue shirt.
Yeah, blue shirt guy. He was just not telling the truth, especially when he said that, crickets, crickets.
Yeah, I know you stuck on the crickets. Yeah. It was so condescending.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So when I thought, I honestly felt, Jane Doe, sounds like she has some good support behind her. And I hope this letter, IHOP KC looks at it and, really takes note at it.
Yeah, kind of reevaluates,
how they're handling
it. Yeah. Right. And I think he points out some major things, like you said, that we spoke about just in terms of protecting the institution, and, the fact that everyone's lawyered up and all of that,
Mhm.
as was claimed, that's a
Right.
good thing.
Right.
I'm not against lawyers by any means, but the claim that that's a good thing in this particular situation is actually working against
Right.
the opportunity to provide healing,
Right.
right?
Right.
And it's holding up the process and even keeping the truth from being exposed, especially all the masking, the wordplay, different things of that sort. So, like I said, at the end, I just want to kind of give you my thoughts on, and they're very short, but give you my thoughts on, like, man, what should happen, from here? Like, what should the church do? Because again, this is something that I think is affecting the body at large. As I stated before, a large majority of people are walking away from the American church and their faith because of spiritual abuse and other forms of abuse.
Right.
And so we need to take notice, and the church needs to lean into this and begin to healthily deal with it in a way that's going to, put the church in position to be an advocate and a light in these situations, to provide healing in these things instead of just being the perpetrators. Now, the reality is that the church is imperfect.
Right.
And nobody's claiming that the church needs to be perfect.
Right.
But we're a forgiven community, right? Which means that our posture is always repentance, right? And the problem with this whole situation is that there's just a lack of repentance.
Yes.
Right? True repentance, right? And so nobody's expecting perfection.
Right.
What we are expecting is truth, right? For people to lay it bare and to allow Jesus and the Spirit of God to really do some deep healing in this. And let me say this too. Just speaking to the individuals who've made comments, who are close to the situation and have experiences, not only with that church, but maybe with even some of the situations that have happened with IHOP has happened to them. Our heart goes out to you, honestly, praying for you.
Definitely.
And again, we want to treat this situation with the sensitivity that it deserves. We're glad that we can at least just be a voice on your behalf, a voice for the voiceless in this particular situation. But again, the main goal is how do we move on from here?
Right.
How does the church, I don't want you to say recover, how does the church forge a different reality? Because the world looks at this. This is a part of our witness to the world.
Right.
Right. And so let's just read through this and then go from there.
All right. Says statement from victim representatives. Along with local counsel Caleb J. Aponte, I have had the privilege to work with several individuals who have reported being abused and traumatized while being a part of the IHOP KC community. I can assure you that this group wants the full truth to surface with the hope that those who have perpetrated abuse will be exposed and held accountable, and that the system which fosters such a harmful environment will be genuinely transformed. Tragically, the actions of IHOP KC and its current leadership seemingly demonstrate a very different agenda.
Yeah, so just a couple things, here, right at the top, several individuals who have reported to have been abused and traumatized while being a part of the IHOP KC family or community. This is far from over. Obviously there's multiple victims. Again, that has to be worked out as far as what that looks like.
Right.
But the reality is that this system was harming a lot of people, and the assurance of wanting to get down to the bottom of it, wanting to the truth to surface, is what's important.
Right.
Because they said it here. You want to hold people accountable, one, but you also want people to be healed.
Right.
And then that last sentence is damning, right? Tragically, the actions of IHOP KC and its current leadership seemingly demonstrate a very different agenda, right? Those are big words. You know what I mean?
Yep. How can any healing come from that? If they have a different agenda?
Absolutely. And, it's really the role of the church, right? to provide healing
Mm-hmm.
for people.
Mm-hmm.
And the church should be leading that charge.
Right.
Right. But unfortunately, it seems like there's another agenda that's going on,
Mm-hmm.
so let's keep going.
As many may know, IHOP KC initially engaged a law firm to conduct what it touted as an independent investigation in relation to misconduct allegations against Mike Bickle. At no time were any of the reported victims or those who have publicly advocated on their behalf ever been consulted by IHOP KC regarding the identity and or qualifications of the third-party investigator, nor provided any information regarding the process, protocol, and scope of such an investigation.
So let's just stop there real quick. So basically, this is why I think this is in response to the things that were said, because there was inquiries that was mentioned from the quote unquote independent investigation going out to, victims and lawyers and different things of that sort to get information on what happened. Right. And the response was people don't want to participate. They get hung up on or blocked, seriously. And so it's hard not to be sarcastic when somebody's being sarcastic about this, right?
And if you don't know what we're talking about, look at our last video. You'll know exactly
absolutely
what we're talking about.
Absolutely. So, again, just the smoke and mirror, just the we see it from one direction.
Right.
We're going to spin it. And unfortunately, this is just prolonging this from becoming a closed situation where people can heal on all sides. But the fact that they're responding to this to clarify that the people who have made the accusations want healing and they want to talk, but they need to talk to the qualified individuals. Right. You're not just going to speak with anyone. And then he gets into a little bit more. So go ahead and keep going.
All of it was simply dictated by IHOP KC with the expectation reported victims and witnesses would participate. When it was discovered that the unilaterally selected third-party investigator was a law firm who has a fiduciary duty to its client, which is IHOP KC, not the reported victims, it became clear that this was an internal investigation being publicly labeled as independent. Shortly thereafter, we learned that IHOP KC reportedly dismissed that law firm and subsequently retained an attorney who is also a congregant of the church to conduct the independent investigation. This attorney also has a fiduciary duty to her client, which is IHOP KC, not the reported victims. I informed this attorney congregant of IHOP KC that though she seemed like a very pleasant person and capable attorney, she was anything but independent. At that point in time, I suggested to her that IHOP KC move forward with a legitimate, qualified, and experienced third-party investigator who is not an attorney.
So let me just say something here real quick. So remember in the other video when Blue Shirt was saying that he made emphasis that this, although this was being footed or carried by the church financially, that they paid for this investigation and they were shouldering it, they in no way control what happens in the investigation. He was trying to emphasize that this was an independent investigation, right? But remember, as I was stating, it's an independent investigation into the victim, into Mike Bickle, but not into the church. They are actually representing the church's interest in that, which is the problem, right? And then to hear that it's not not necessarily an independent investigation, but this is, possibly counsel that's looking to gain this information is even more suspect and concerning, at that point, you know what I mean? And so, to have an individual who's tied to the church, take the church as a client, there's going to be bias there, natural bias, you know what I mean? There's going to be bias there. It's just it's not even a good idea. Why even put somebody in that position to have to represent the church that they go to, people they love, and put them in the position to have to objectively make decisions
Right.
about that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so
What's it called? A conflict of interest?
there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very, very much so, a conflict of interest.
I even offered to provide IHOP KC with some suggestions since I've been working in this field for almost 30 years. I also communicated to this attorney congregant that it was imperative that IHOP KC expand the scope of any investigation beyond Mike Bickle to include allegations of SA perpetrated by anyone in leadership and or on staff at IHOP KC, as others have recently reported such allegations.
Okay, so here we go again. Now, remember the diagram.
Mm-hmm.
The investigation clearly only went two directions,
Yeah.
into the
Victim.
questions of the victim and into Mike Bickle,
Yeah.
but not into the church.
Right.
Right. And this is what he's saying. Like, no, it's not just individuals that need to be, investigated here.
Mm-hmm.
The church also needs to be investigated to see if there's any other individuals that are a part of this that need to be included in this.
Right.
And I'm assuming here
Mm-hmm.
that the allegations that Boz Tchividjian and his team
Mm-hmm.
are getting from these individuals may not just include one individual.
Right. Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
And it sounds like he's trying to get them to really be open and honest
Yeah.
and say, hey, listen, this goes deeper than you think it goes.
Mm-hmm.
It might be best for you to do X, Y, and Z
Mm-hmm.
in order to make that happen. But it seems like the lack of interest in, kind of pushing this further
Mm-hmm.
is what IHOP KC right now is actually doing.
I even suggested a 2-tier investigative approach where the allegations related to Mr. Bickle would first be investigated, followed by investigating allegations related to others in leadership and or staff. At the time, the attorney congregant told me that she would pass along the suggestion up the chain. I never heard back from her about it.
Now, I can't tell you why this person did not get back to them or whether or not this person actually passed it along. But here, this goes back to truth versus, legal representation.
Mm-hmm.
Legal representation is always going to do what's in the best interest of their client.
Mm-hmm.
They're not there to project their client's guilt.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
And so, I'm not saying that this attorney did any of that. I'm just saying that why would they do that?
Right. Right.
If they've been chosen as legal counsel, why would they actually do that?
Right.
Why would they do anything that's going to incriminate or put their client in a position where they're admitting or they are owning up to any type of guilt
Mm-hmm.
as it relates to any of this?
Yeah.
Right. And he's mentioning all of this for a reason.
Yeah.
He's kind of building on the idea of what he said earlier, that it doesn't seem like everyone wants the same thing in this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And here's why.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like everybody has a different agenda here. You know what I mean? And these are the reasons why.
In context of the above, I was quite surprised to receive an email on Friday, December 8th, from yet another attorney from yet another law firm requesting to interview my client. At no time did they ever reach out to seek input from my client or any other reported victim regarding this process. Once again, they assumed that reported victims would participate in a supposed independent process that they had unilaterally determined. It was disheartening to many that we were right back at square one with IHOP KC engaging another law firm to conduct what it defined as an independent investigation. Only this time, the law firm is one that proudly touts its representation of defendant organizations, including but not limited to the Catholic Church in SA-related litigation. The law firm website proudly mentions such work, including but not limited to the following statements.
Do you want to read those or?
I can. Yeah.
Okay.
Obtained a complete dismissal of a private high school and an affiliated diocese in an action involving a volunteer coach who essayed a member of the girls' softball team. A prompt and thorough investigation by our team allowed the client to assess its liability risk and whether its policies had been followed. The trial court granted motions arguing there was no duty to protect the plaintiff from SA that were unrelated to any school activity and occurred on private property. Another one says represented a Roman Catholic diocese in a group settlement of 52 claims and a subsequent group settlement of 32 claims, resulting in per claimant awards of less than 1/3 the national average. The last one says obtained a completed dismissal of all claims against a religious organization in a case involving claims of SA.
So basically, he's laying the fact out that the church hired a law firm or attorneys that specialize in getting religious communities off on SA related charges.
And not only did they get them off, but they're like proud.
Yeah, they're gloating.
What we did.
Yeah. This is their business.
Yeah.
Our business is to help you to avoid X, Y, and Z.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that they're well. Anyway, so, and he's going to mention this, but this is crazy. Why in the world would anybody cooperate?
Right.
Like with that.
Yeah.
If I don't think you have my best intentions in mind, I don't think that you're going for the truth at this point.
Yeah.
If I don't believe that you're looking to get to the bottom of what happened so that healing can be provided to myself and to other members of the community who have experienced this, then why in the world would I, involve myself or, participate in any quote unquote independent investigation?
Right.
Right. At that point, it's probably a deposition.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they're trying to see what evidence is out there so that they know how to rebut it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. How to get ahead of it.
Yeah.
And this is kind of what you're talking about here. Why would reported victims of SA and misconduct sit down with an attorney from a firm that represents churches in SA matters and then boast about its successes? I have no doubt that this law firm will represent organizational defendants in SA litigation. However, it cannot be all things to all people. It cannot represent and defend institutional clients in such cases and then turn around and invite reported SA victims to meet with its attorneys and to trust them. It simply doesn't work that way. In an attempt to help the new attorney understand our position, I provided a copy of an article I wrote a few years ago about the difference between internal and independent investigations.
Which is a good article.
You read it?
Yeah, I did read it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Despite the profound concerns raised above regarding the law firm's representation of churches in SA cases in a good faith effort to evaluate the attorney's claims that she is functioning as an independent investigator and nothing more, and is perfectly capable of reaching unbiased and independent conclusions, I requested a copy of her engagement agreement with IHOP. She responded by writing, "As a matter of practice, we do not release entire engagement letters to non-parties. Wouldn't the attorneys who represent a Jane Doe be a party? If not, who are the parties?"
Right. So again, this is going back to the individual who is a congregant and the attorney for the church. This is legal jargon here, but they ask for information based on the relationship that they have with the church in terms of how they're going to represent them and different things of that sort, engagement agreement. And they don't want to give it to them. And then they say we only give it to individuals who are a part of the parties that are involved with the case. And he's like, I'm the attorney.
Right.
I represent one of those individuals.
Right.
So again, it's just another example of kind of keeping things concealed and hidden and, smoke and mirrors. Right. And truthfully, the hard part with all of this is that it can seem very deceptive. And in many cases, it probably is. But this is also how the legal system works. Right. You see what I'm saying? So this is why, we don't get involved with the legal system in that way.
Right.
You understand? Like, I'm not saying that we should never involve the legal system because there are certain things the legal system needs to be involved in, especially as it relates to church stuff. Right. Like certain abuses. Right. But what I am saying is that when you bring lawyers into it from this perspective, where they're defending particular entities that are trying to get to the truth, the lawyer's job is not to expose that. It's to play chess.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? Like it's not meant to get down to the bottom of the barrel.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just the nature of that, that situation once lawyers get involved with it. So in no way am I blaming lawyers, or I'm just saying that the church needs to be forefront here in handling the situation.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? Like, and to be honest, who needs to be at the center of kind of laying the cards down? It's the church.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, hey, you know what? We're going to set the example here, set the tone, and we're just going to say, hey, this is it.
Yeah.
We're open to whatever's needed in order to push for healing, push for reconciliation, whatever that looks like. We're going to do whatever we need to do. And whether that's opening up the books, we're going to do that. We're going to cooperate so that we can actually move forward here. But if there's other things that are there and they know about it, then that's where the problem lies.
Yep. And you said it all, because I was just about to say, if they are really serious about getting to the truth, if they really care about, look, we need to unpeel all these, onion leaves and get to the actual main part of the onion. If they're really serious about doing that, then they would do that. But
absolutely.
See, that's the thing. Just like what you said, I don't think that they're serious about doing that, because either they know about other stuff that they're trying to keep hidden, or, they're trying to save face for the entity.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Also, since she is functioning as only an independent investigator and nothing more, will they agree to waive all attorney-client communications? She then offered to send us a portion of the agreement that she unilaterally has determined demonstrates the independence of the investigation. This response simply confirmed my concerns that IHOP KC is in the driver's seat in a process that they alone have dictated.
Okay, so this goes back to, again, what Blue Shirt said in terms of IHOP is not controlling, dictating.
Right.
I mean, I gotta look at the date of that video, because I'm almost positive this is after.
Oh, definitely.
Because this was a couple days ago.
On the 16th. Yeah. I want to say that video was maybe the 9th or the 12th.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So, yeah, this just shows that they're spinning a narrative. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That they're drawing a narrative, right? That they want, honestly, the people who are still currently tied to that community, they're spinning a narrative. You know what I mean? And yeah, I mean, it's just sad. It's also, it just doesn't make very much sense. It's like a corrupt cop. Oh, that's probably the bad way of saying it. Let me take the corrupt off. It's like a cop who's being accused of doing something, of misconduct, who investigating himself. That's essentially what's happening here.
Yeah.
The cop is being accused of some sort of misconduct, and he's like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and investigate myself. I'm going to hire an attorney to look into my conduct.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm going to turn over my paperwork, and I can't control them because they're independent, but I'm paying for it. It just doesn't make sense.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. The approach of IHOP KC is clearly focused on maintaining control and protecting the institution.
Now, this is just the heart of it. This is the heart of it.
Yes.
Yeah. This is the heart.
Yeah. As one who has been on the front lines of addressing abuse within faith communities for almost 25 years, I can assure you that such an approach is not consistent with best practices standards, nor the standards of Jesus. It is not too late for IHOP KC to change course and begin working with representatives of the reported victims to come up with a process that is genuinely independent and one that ensures that those stepping forward to share their trauma are made to feel comfortable and safe. Until then, it is highly unlikely that reported victims and witnesses will participate in such a fundamentally flawed process.
And that's, I mean, he just summed it up. You know what I mean? Like, this is why folks are not participating.
Right.
They will not participate as long as it's not a safe environment for them to participate.
Right.
And, the fact that IHOP is the one who's, kind of running this, and they're the ones who are directing this, is not making people feel comfortable.
Nope.
And not providing an opportunity for their trauma to be heard and for them to feel comfortable and to feel safe.
Yeah.
But I love what he said here. There's always a way of escape, right? Like there's always an opportunity to change course. And he says, it is not too late for IHOP to change course and begin working with representatives of the reported victims to come up with a process that is genuinely independent and one that ensures those stepping forward can share their trauma and are made to feel comfortable and safe. So the admonition is really just to do the right thing.
Right.
I mean, at this point, turn it around.
Yeah.
And do the right thing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And just say, it is what it is.
Yeah. But I'm almost afraid that they're in too deep now to even, I hope it's not too late.
Yeah.
But, they're not going in the direction that they should be going.
No, they're not.
It seems like they just continually keep going the wrong direction.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not sure they're willing to turn it down. And I really do believe like what he said is the key. I think, and even looking at Mike Bickle's, his emails, the culture of the church, talking about IHOP KC, the culture of the church is everything's about the movement. And anything that comes up against it, true or not, at this point, is the enemy trying to tear down what it is that they're doing.
Right. The movement. Yep.
You understand? So for them, any relenting is really giving into Satan and him destroying this kingdom movement that God has put in place. Right? Without really even realizing that without truth and honesty, integrity and love, there is no movement.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, think about what Paul says. He says that, your tongues, your gifts, your tongues are like, clashing cymbals if you don't love. Right? So all of the things that you're doing, all of the things that you feel are important, all of the accolades and all of the gifts that may be transpiring within this particular community and everything that they're doing really means nothing if you don't have the ability to love, if you're not loving.
Yeah.
And this is a breach in community, in love. So it doesn't matter what you're doing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the reality is that you're sacrificing the movement now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what you try to protect, you end up destroying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, they really need to just let go.
Yeah.
And then let it be. Now, I understand that people's lives, it's easier said than done. I understand people's lives are affected by that.
Right. Right.
I'm not just talking about the lives of the congregations. I'm talking about if there's other things that have happened that needs to be exposed. Yeah. Then, that's just the reality of what's happened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So anyway, just a couple things, this is maybe more of a message to the universal church, but, what needs to happen here? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what does the church, in this type of situation need to do? And this is just my own personal opinion. You know what I mean? Like, like, what does the church need to do? Well, three things. One, Boz mentioned in there, he mentioned systems. And he said the system which fostered such a harmful environment. The system fostered such a harmful environment. And again, this is more to the universal church as well as locally, but the system needs to be torn down and rebuilt. It needs a new system.
Yeah.
Like it needs to be redone.
Yep.
You know what I mean? The system needs to be torn down because the system is fostering harmful, abusive. The culture is toxic.
Yeah.
It's not a healthy culture. I don't care how much good is happening there. It's not a healthy culture. Right? And if all of this is coming out as a result of this one situation,
right,
and all of this has been hidden,
right,
the culture is not redeemable.
Right.
The system needs to be torn down and rebuilt, right? It needs to be reestablished. The second thing is not only does the system need to be torn down and rebuilt, it needs to be replaced and not reformed. Now, most people would say, okay, we need to reform the community. We need to overhaul it. No, it needs to be replaced. It needs to be replaced with a new foundation. If there's a weak foundation in a house or a weak foundation in a structure, you can't just build a new structure on top of it.
Right.
You can't just refurbish the structure on top of it. You need to build a new one.
Yeah.
It needs to be torn down and replaced.
Yeah.
Right. And it doesn't need reformation. It needs to be replaced.
Yeah.
A new system needs to be put in place, a new thought process, a new image, a new reality needs to happen within that community. It needs to be replaced, not reformed.
Right.
Right. Because out of this, what's going to happen is, oh, well, we're going to have an elder team that we're going to put together, and the elders are going to do X, Y, and Z. Listen, we're seeing this not only here with local churches or like churches like IHOP, but the Southern Baptist convention is kind of in this same position. All of the harmful beliefs that the Baptist convention was built on are now starting to surface, right? And what's happening is they're trying to reform them, but the problem is they're deeply rooted into the culture of the Southern Baptist convention, right? So it's impossible to reform, because it's a part of the character of Southern Baptist convention. It may not be the people, but it's a part of the character. It's how it's functioned. It's a part of the fabric of it. And it's the same thing here. The way IHOP has functioned, it's a part of that fabric and culture, and you can't undo that.
Yeah.
You can't. You got to replace it. And the last thing is, this is more maybe for the universal church, but also just locally, we need to reimagine a church that's centered on Jesus. Like, the church needs to be reimagined. Like, we need to rethink what the church is and what the church looks like. And I know most people are going to say, like, well, this church is set on Jesus, or the church is set on Jesus. I think we say a lot. We say Jesus' name a lot, but I'm not sure that he's the center of our worship, right? We're either worshiping doctrine or we're worshiping gifts. We've made Jesus essentially an idol. He's not a God. He's not God to us. He's an idol, right? And so we say his name a lot. We use his name a lot, but I'm not sure he's the center of our movements. I'm not sure he's the center of the church. I'm not sure he is the reason for what we do. You understand what I'm saying? And so I think we need to kind of reimagine what church is and recenter it back on the Spirit of God and Jesus. And again, I'm all for the gifts. I'm all for transformation and growth and all of those things, but those things only come by what you behold. It only comes by what you see and what you behold. The more we look at Jesus and the more time we spend in his presence, the more we change, right? It's not what we do. It's not what we say. It's not how we function. It's not how blessed we are. It's not how much we've accumulated. It's not how many people are here. It's not how large the movement is. It's not how many baptisms we have. All of those things are great. All of those things are important. However, that does not mean we're centered on Jesus, because the scripture clearly tells us that you can do all the right things and still miss out on Jesus. He says, you can stand before him. He's going to say, hey, have I not cast out demons in your name? Have I not fed the hungry? Have I not spoken in tongues? Have I not preached exegetically? Have I not believed in a certain doctrine? And Jesus is going to say, no, depart from me, for I never knew you. You're a worker of iniquity. So here's the last thing I'm going to say. This is biblical hypocrisy. Okay. Biblical hypocrisy is not what we would generally call hypocrisy today, in terms of, like, we think hypocrisy is somebody saying something and then doing something different. But biblical hypocrisy is doing the right thing for the wrong reasons. That's what biblical hypocrisy is. This is why the Pharisees were called hypocrites. They weren't hypocrites because they didn't live the law. They were hypocrites because they lived the law, but their hearts were far from God. That's biblical hypocrisy. That's why I'm saying, like, we say Jesus, but we're living far from God. We're doing the right things. We're showing up to church. We're worshiping. We're singing these songs. We're preaching his word. We're feeding the hungry. We're feeding the poor, but we're doing it for the wrong reasons. Right? And so we're practicing hypocrites. You understand what I'm saying? And this is what Jesus was calling this is why Jesus was on the Pharisees. It's because you do all of these great things. You keep the prayers. You do all it, but you're doing it for the wrong reasons. right?
Right.
That's hypocrisy. And that's where the church is today. The church is doing the right things for the wrong reasons. We're practicing hypocrisy. And so that's why, to me, the church needs to be reimagined. We just need to rethink about what church is and return back to the essence of what community is, and stop participating so much in the form and get back to what we are supposed to be doing, which is to be people who are led by the Spirit. Right? We're led by the Spirit, right? And we're people who love others, simple, right? Love others, love God, and demonstrate his goodness to the world as image bearers who are created in his image and who carry his image and who represent him as real people in the world. Yeah. So, but anyway, that's it. That's all we have for you today.
All right.
Yeah. So
that's the owl.
Here you go. Thank you so much for tuning into the Church Dropout podcast. We hope you were helped by this. Again, please like, rate, subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast at. Drop a comment below. Keep the conversation moving forward. Yeah. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. And we do read
the comments.
Yeah, we do read the comments.
Reading the comments. So keep them coming, please.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. Talk to you soon. God bless you.
Bye.